What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 346. My name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron
and John.
That felt good, guys. That was very clean.
Did.
Flowed right through.
Boost up.
Good to see you guys again after a week off.
Yes. I was sick, and Ronald's basement was sick.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, oh my! What a crazy situation. I'm glad it's resolved. It only took 4 days of like dehumidifiers and air blowers, and my AC leaked. The exhaust from it leaked all over the floor and went under the tiling, which is even worse. I would rather it just have been on the surface. It was crazy because you can get like black mold underneath. So like, I had to like dehumidify. And it was like a lot of money that we had to spend in a really short amount of time. There's a statistic. Most Americans can't handle a $400 emergency. Yeah. That is fucking absolutely right.
Right.
It's the weirdest thing in the world. It's like...
It's an unglamorous way to spend that money too. You know, it's like whatever you might have been. If you had that money sitting there, you sure as hell weren't planning on doing it, like that. So...
Right.
If it was like black tar heroin or something like that, I'd be
right. That's what I mean. Like,
fine with
let's have a wild weekend. No, let's just have a functional basement.
Like, no, I'm not about it.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you got that taken care of, and I'm glad you're feeling better, John.
Yeah, seriously.
And so I mean, just kind of looking ahead to the episode, we're gonna go over some news items, some trailer talk at the top here. We'll talk about this week's my pick for the required viewing, which was Michael Mann's Thief, which we mentioned last episode. And then the back half of the show, we're going to kind of just go over some stuff we've seen over the past 2 weeks since we've had a bit of a gap. And really, none of us have seen any of the newness. John, you mentioned Thor: Love and Thunder in the last episode, but I know Jordan Peele's Nope comes out this week, which I'm very excited to see. Hopefully I'll be able to check that out.
Yeah, when this episode comes out, it's out. I'm probably going to see it Friday sometime, but yes, we have not gotten a chance to see it in advance. So, but I can just say that the critical response I've seen, or the Twitter response that I've seen thus far, has me really excited about like not just what this movie might be on the surface level, but once again what Jordan Peele might have working underneath the hood. Is you can just trust that guy to have a concept, and it really sounds like he touches on a lot of things in this. But I feel very unspoiled beyond the trailer and a few sentences I've read, and I want to keep it that way. So
same.
That's the approach. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, it was you, Ronald, or just one of somebody on our thread mentioned not watching the new trailer, and I didn't, because I feel like it gave away some stuff. I think maybe you mentioned it. So I only saw that first teaser. So I've kind of managed to stay away from, outside of like general reactions, no details about the movie, obviously, but like I haven't even watched the trailer, the main trailer or trailers. I want to try to go in as cold as possible because huge fan. We all are. And we were talking on the thread earlier, like this is probably the most anticipated movie maybe of the rest of the year. I don't know. Like there's a couple other coming out that I really want to see, but I feel like his track record and just like how much I've loved and we've loved the last two films, and it's just him in general,
right?
And what Monkey Paw is doing and all that stuff. Like the cast of this is just everything just looks great. I mean, the feelings of what it is, I have a general idea just from the teaser, but I mean that subject matter even just has me like super excited to see it. So I mean, this is one of the big ones of the year for me, for sure. So I really hope I can see it this weekend or some point before we record next. So maybe we can just chat about it a little bit. But we're going to mention a couple of trailers. The day before we recorded the episode, the Halloween Ends trailer came out. Teaser trailer came out. I don't know.
That's a teaser. I mean, I don't know how much more a trailer can tell you about it, but that definitely was. It was such a quick succession of shots. It almost looks like when they run that little 15-second trailer before the trailer, when you watch it on YouTube sometimes. That's kind of what it felt like to me.
It was, I feel like a part of me felt disappointed beyond the content of the trailer that like they promoted it as a trailer. I feel like everything that was going on for the past 2 weeks about it coming out, and it was supposed to come out today and it came out yesterday early. And I mean, even that idea was that, you know, like, I don't know, just something felt like, oh, they're releasing it early. Maybe it is something like really special. And you know, I saw the runtime of it to start. I was like, ah, damn it, it's barely a minute. And like by the time it gets into anything, it's just kind of like, yeah, this is barely a teaser trailer for me. I mean, I don't know. What did you guys think of it in general? I mean, just basic reaction to it, if any.
I think, I mean, I kind of like the one that was from Halloween Kills, the one where it's like the moment after the fire happened.
Yeah,
and
like with the
like,
firefighters.
They kind of did the same thing before. It is weird to see them kind of breaking the tradition of like traditional teasers and traditional trailers, but I mean, it's very apparent to me that something about the person that we see in the trailer, I don't know if it's the person that we've come to know as Michael Myers in the trilogy. I don't like, there's something weird about his behavior. He knows about technology, which is super weird. Like, it's like, this isn't Michael Myers. So I think that's why they're showing as much as they are. I think we have some this seems to be a theme in a lot of movies. The copycat, the person that's trying to be the person. You know, we saw it in the Batman movies. We saw it in you know, a lot of stuff. And I think that this is kind of a commentary on that. But I don't know if this guy is Mikael.
See, I didn't get that at all. To me, it seemed like Michael Myers, just because it had the same kind of mask, the same degraded mask as the character from the last movie. And they really seem to be trying to sell us on this idea of this is the final confrontation. But they kind of did that already with the Halloween 2018. So it's hard to know. Yeah. I mean, you might be right, Ronald. If there's a new wrinkle, maybe that's it. But you know, I'm fine with Michael knowing how Disposal works. That doesn't bump me at all, because he's done that kind of thing in other movies already. In fact, in Halloween H2O, he uses a Disposal in that one too. So. But what got me was just, there's one little scene. I like the sort of following up the stairs, like the opening of that teaser. I thought was a cool moment, and it feels like it's going to be in the context of a movie. I can see that moment. Like, that's my favorite part about the Halloween movies when they do it right, is when you're kind of following Michael around on his rounds, you know?
Yeah.
So that feels kind of neat. And there's a little reveal there that I thought was visually done nicely. But yeah, I still feel like, oh, so this time Laurie Strode's fighting back. That just doesn't seem like enough of a hype wrinkle to push, you know? Yeah. So if it is just watching these two tangle in a much more visceral way, and watching her and him almost be kind of more evenly matched, which might be a hint to what you're saying, Ronald, if in fact there's a copycat angle, which that's the first I've heard of that. But like, if there is, that might be one of the reasons why it seems like she's able to kind of fight him rather than being overpowered by him. But you know, maybe this is almost like a redo. This is a chance for this trilogy to wrap up and say something and try to please everybody. And I feel like I don't know if you guys have noticed, every time someone talks about this movie, they either talk about how, oh, it's going to surprise fans and some people won't like it because we're doing something bold. And then they're also saying, oh, this is really fitting and it's a great conclusion. Yeah. It's like, I think that they don't really know what to say at this point because of how divisive the last movie in the trilogy was.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Evil dies today.
We'll see.
I hated that chant.
You know, we said it when we were talking about that movie, but like I was kind of cold on that movie, but I do feel like I would rewatch that movie regularly.
Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah, right. It's like it's fun and kind of silly.
Yeah.
And Michael's mean in it. He's mean as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my son and I were just talking about that the other day. How that movie is it's rewatchable in that way. And I think that was my immediate reaction to it too, was I don't think it's necessarily good. And there's definitely some stuff about it that just stinks, but I could easily see it ranking high in movies I would put on if I was hanging out with like a horror buddy and we wanted to just have something on. Agree. I think it's just the meanness of those kills, and a couple of those scenes where Michael's stalking people feel like some of the best Michael Myers stuff we've gotten. It's just the other stuff they tried to put in that movie, the commentary and the mob, you know, the mass hysteria or whatever. That stuff was really ham-fisted.
Yeah, for sure.
What else? What other trailer? Anything else you guys want to mention?
The Rings of Power on Amazon. we've been hearing forever how much they're putting into this follow-up, prequel, whatever you want to call it, to the Lord of the Rings series. Amazon wants its Game of Thrones, it wants its Star Wars, whatever. And my immediate reaction is just, this really does look like movies. So, and as a big fan of those books and those films, I'm anxious to see what they can do with this. Kind of, even though it is a prequel, it's thousands of years ago. So it's like a clean slate. It's like that thing we've been saying we wish Star Wars would do, which is find a new everything to depict. And so there are some characters that we know from Lord of the Rings that are in this, but they are the immortal characters. They're the elves, and they're going to be different versions of them. So it really is kind of like a new window into that world. I think it looks great.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like, it looks really good. Like that aspect of it, and it's been reported pretty openly, like how much they're spending on this series, and even just to acquire the rights. So hopefully they do it right and do it well, because this is like a huge swing for IP, to associate it or align itself with, rather, and for what could be done with it going forward. But I thought it looks good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. You mentioned the Game of Thrones and the House of the Dragon, that trailer came out too. So it's funny that, like, timing wise, these like series are like going up against like this the first real spin-off out of the gate from like one of the biggest shows of all time, against like a property like Lord of the Rings, so beloved and and so rich in film and book history, and it's just like now they're kind of going into this television arena. So I mean, like that kind of battle, there's like that there's not only do they want their version of Game of Thrones, like they're literally about to go against the new version of the Game of Thrones, the prequel series House of the Dragon, which also I think looks awesome. I mean, like I can't wait to watch that as much, maybe a little more, just because like recency, I don't know, like I'm just so curious of what they're doing with these spinoffs. And they talked about a new Jon Snow series that they came out a couple weeks ago with Kit Harington, like kind of the whole Beyond the Wall stuff at the end of the series, and then this is a prequel series, so it's like I'm very curious to see what they're able to do with that IP. I mean, because wherever you land on where that show ended and how it got there, there's no denying like what value that brand, that series holds in television and streaming, in future of what it looks like to watch stuff, whether it's on your TV, your computer, your tablet, whatever it is. And it's probably one of the biggest, arguably the biggest, versus maybe Lord of the Rings, and they're coming out relatively right around each other. So it's like, let's see how that plays out. What did you think of the House of Dragon trailer, Ronald?
I thought it was great. Yeah. The issue is that we're dealing with like two fantastical worlds, and I feel like I'm watching a continuous show, right, in the best way possible. Like, so right. God bless Amazon. Hopefully we'll get a copy of Lord of the Rings. I think I'm a little more, so I'm really excited for Game of Thrones. I'm very, very excited about Lord of the Rings, because I feel like Amazon is how this happened, I don't know. It's like the scrappy studio that's been putting out really good quality shows, like nonstop. The movies are really good, and I like the fight in Amazon. They feel little and scrappy like A24, but there's this huge conglomerate. I don't know how it's like Apple, how Apple has kind of gotten away with this, like it feels boutique, but they're billionaires. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, somehow Apple and Amazon have like stepped around Netflix in general in the quality wars. I think Stranger Things is maybe Netflix's big quality production, but in a lot of ways people view Netflix series and Netflix movies, I think, as a little bit less special. But I think kind of what you're both saying, Amazon has made a point of just saying this is a real play for us. We really want something on the that competes with some of these big shows. I think it's interesting too. You both kind of alluded to it. Like Game of Thrones really probably wouldn't have existed without the Lord of the Rings films being so successful, that you kind of want the slightly more adult version. That being so successful is probably why Amazon is developing this prequel to Lord of the Rings that feels a little bit more grown up. And so that competition we're seeing, it's really funny that like these two things that wouldn't exist without the other are going to be coincidentally airing at the same time. So but I might be a little more excited for Lord of the Rings too, just because I'm really curious what they're going to do with that world. And I think if there were any problems with Lord of the Rings, I think they're doing this with the Game of Thrones prequel, or it's a prequel as well. But in both cases, especially on the Lord of the Rings or the Rings of Power, there's an effort to be more diverse. Like automatically in the trailer, you can see them highlighting there's not as many white people. There are more women. I think those are steps in the right direction for sure. And reason to be hopeful that they're doing something special. But you're right; it's like a wealth of riches, right, or an embarrassment of riches.
It's craziness.
Anything else before we move on to our required viewing segment, this is exciting. This was a fun movie to watch.
I think I'm ready to go. Yeah.
So, Steve, this was your choice. Maybe refresh our memory as to what made you choose it, and then start us off. How did you feel about it when you were watching Thief?
Well, unfortunately, the timing of it was the week that we kind of lost James Caan, and when we started talking about this, and I was kind of reminded how often this title has come up. Whether it's in conversations about James Caan, about anything new that comes out that Michael Mann does, I feel like this title always comes up, and it's the one in his filmography that I had never really, I'd never seen any of it. I hadn't even really caught glances of it beyond, some of the re-release like artwork, and, I had read a couple reviews about it over the year. I think Roger Ebert's review always stood out to me, but like, it was always one of those movies. Like we all have that list of movies that like, I have the movie, I just have never sat down to watch it, and I've always intended to, and it's in my watch list. It's just anywhere I manage what I want to watch, like it's in that list somewhere. You know what I mean? So when you were mentioning, this idea, I was kind of going through that list, thinking of the ones like not just that, would be fun to watch, but just like actually accomplish something. Selfishly, I wanted to accomplish actually watching this movie finally. And like I said, unfortunately the week that we were discussing it, James Caan passed away, and a lot of people were talking about some of his stand-up performances, and obviously a lot of Godfather talk. We talked about some of our personal favorites.
What's that? Godfather,
it's a movie
about
that came out a while ago. I've heard it's good. I mean, it's okay. I don't know.
Did you guys have Godfather pizzas?
I was gonna say, the pizza, not the pizza. But I don't know. It just was a good opportunity, and it was timely, and better time than ever to finally sit down and watch it. So Thief is Michael Mann's feature directorial debut, 1981. James Caan, who else? Jim Belushi's in it. William Peterson has a small little walk right past you role in it.
Dennis
Farina's in it. I had written a list of a couple other people. The guy who plays the main.
Robert Prosky.
Yeah, props. Yeah,
and this was his first role too, which is crazy because he's like 40s in this, but he's one of those guys who's never been a young man in my mind. I bet when he was born, he had that face.
Right. Him. I think it was also Jim Belushi's first movie. I think.
Yeah,
I read it right.
Face Belushi.
Wow. So I mean, just like Michael Mann has a style to his filmmaking. Even the television work that he's done. Obviously, a lot of people know Miami Vice. From the TV world, but I mean, movies like Manhunter and Collateral and Heat, and even the new series that he has on HBO Max. Was it Tokyo Vice?
Oh, that's Michael Mann. I did not know.
Yeah, Michael Mann's new. Yeah, so I mean, he's got an aesthetic to a lot of his films that a lot of people know him by. Even the Miami Vice film that was with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx that came out a few years back. And you definitely see the beginnings of that in this movie. It's got that style to it. It takes place in Chicago. I don't know. It's just like, it's definitely like immediately I felt like it was in the filmography. Like it felt in place with a lot of his other, specifically like things like Manhunter, which came not that long after this. It kind of maybe was an establishing effort to kind of like get that style down. you know, and it's got the score by Tangerine Dream, and you know, like it's got this vibe to it beyond the story or the performances, the movie, even though it's a little more understated than some of his other movies. I feel like you could watch it and feel pretty quickly, if you've seen his other films, like this is maybe the beginning of that style that people maybe know Michael Mann by. I don't know. What did you guys think of Thief? You neither one of you had seen it, right?
No.
Right. Okay. And awareness of it? Yes, no, or
you know, I think the main thing I knew about it was that it was sort of a style reference for Drive.
Right.
And
that's exactly what I was going to say.
And you can, I mean, that first 10 minutes, you can really feel all this, the drive of it. You can feel the Michael Mann of it. You know, it's like all that stuff. Like there's a 10-minute sequence that's like wordless that starts off this movie that's got this you know, synth score and kind of lovingly photographed like tech. He's right. A thief, as the title indicates, breaking into a safe. That drill, that's almost like a sex scene. Watching that drill in that safe. So I mean, it definitely feels like Michael Mann likes to film these sleek surfaces, and he likes to shoot like low light but with bright lights in it. And I read a little bit about that. He wanted to shoot in so much low light stuff, in order to get the contrast he wanted, you have to really goose the fluorescence or goose the reflected light and stuff like that. So that's that's where that style comes from, because you have like deep black next to a bright reflection or a bright color.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was very arresting, and you know, paced. You have to kind of settle into the pace of it a little bit. It's a long movie for what occurs in it. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely felt that stylishness just dripping off it from the first frame. What about you, Ronald?
I think that Nicholas Winding Refn's mood board was, I want Thief, yeah, but I also want the aesthetics of Miami Vice. I want the coolness of Miami Vice. It's like he took these two and fused them together. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I don't think I'd ever seen a movie that this age with a synth soundtrack quite like it, besides like Blade Runner, right? Which didn't really have as, like, this was so much more of a contrast versus Blade Runner that was like in the future and had, you know, had some like synthy stuff happening. This was like modern, you know, for the time, and then synth. It just feels different. It's something about current technology and synth that just feels very like, I'm gonna steal something. It feels heightened. It heightens it so much.
It's very forward thinking, you know.
It is so forward thinking, like, especially for the time, man. Like, it was probably, this was right at the end of disco, right? So like a lot of the sounds around that time were kind of hybrids of like soul.
Well, you know that blues band that they have the extended scene of in the bar?
Yeah.
Originally, the score was going to be, if not that band, that style of music, like Chicago blues. And he said he felt like it put it too much in a place, and he didn't want the score to set it, to make it too much of a Chicago movie. He wanted the score to open it up a little bit. So in 1981, synth is coming. I mean, that's it. It's kind of replacing disco, the traditional disco sounds, is that synth sound. What's funny is at the time there was a lot of criticism of this being like a janky score or a cheap score.
Yeah, I was reading
that. You watch
it
now, and it's like that's one of the most like current feeling things about it is the music.
Yeah. Another thing that Nicholas borrowed from is like violence being very like not very heavily edited. It's just the camera stays on the violence. The person gets roughed up. There's no like second angle. It just is in the place that it's at, which kind of makes it feel that much realer. When James Caan's character kind of gets in a jam, and you know, it kind of comes to a head that he's been dealing with things the way he shouldn't deal with things in the eyes of his employer. You know, it becomes very apparent that you know, he's not going to come out the same way that he came in. And I love the way that it felt, because all the violence was shot that way. And I'm like, man, this feels so good for some reason. It feels like it didn't even matter what the setting was. It felt so modern in that way. I really enjoyed it. James Caan is doing a thing in this movie that I can't really even, it's like hyper masculine, but like not
weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's like I love the scene where he's trying to adopt a kid and he just starts spouting out a bunch of slurs for give me
it's so
give me a
uncomfortable.
boop, give me a boop. I'm like, oh my God. You're not gonna get
especially
this.
when he's using that as like, if you got a kid nobody wants, give me a know, and it's definitely like a mark of this character's kind of flawed thinking. But it's also, I mean, there's definitely, this movie is kind of, it's an interesting thing, right? It's got macho bullshit all over the place in it, but it also is seemingly commenting on macho bullshit by having the cool guy at the center of the story be, like I said, he's a weirdo. He's kind of whiny. Like when he gets with that woman, the way he goes off on the date with her and yells at her in the car, he's not cool, you know? And his whole speech in the bar or in the restaurant, I think it's very funny that he's like, what's your story? And she gives him like a couple sentences. And then she's like, what about you? And he's like, all right, everybody sit down. I'm going to go on for like 10 minutes about my story. I just think there is, it's commenting on that masculine trope a little bit, even while it's indulging in it. And I think that, again, that's a Michael Mann thing, right? Is that he gives you that surface thing. And then he also seems to be aware that this is not a good guy.
Yeah,
I feel like that scene in the restaurant, I actually love that scene, that monologue.
No, I did too. I'm just saying it's such a commentary on, like, the man is definitely the focus of this story. Like
oh, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. You're definitely right. Yeah. Now I was listening to or reading an interview, or maybe it was like one of these recaps when he passed away, and it was like an audio clip. Maybe it was a commentary track, maybe that he did for it, and it was just talking about like how that scene was like one of his favorite scenes that he's ever done.
Oh wow.
But like, yeah, and that seems like it's kind of a scene that the movie, from reading more about it, is kind of like known for. But yeah, when he goes through that story about like his time in prison and what it was to start and what it ended up being, and like, you know, whatever happened to him, that like kind of kept him in there as long as he was in there, that scene kind of really kind of hits some of the masculinity, you know, problems that John was mentioning, or like at least where it's in the forefront of the story. But it also kind of like just, it kind of, the way the vulnerability kind of comes through a little bit in that scene. It's like one of the few moments where you really see that crack in the movie. The rest of the movie, he's just kind of weird or like hyper masculine or like demand, you know, kind of loud or whatever the situation might be. But the way he kind of just like blows by the details of what happened to him, you know, and like doesn't want to talk about it, but is talking about it, you know, because he doesn't know how to talk about. I don't know. That was, I thought, really like a nice vulnerable moment for that character. And I can see why, you know, it kind of has the reputation that it has as one of his better scenes.
What a way to cheat. I mean, what a way to cheat. I mean, he's just, it's interesting the way that they open that up. Like, you're like, oh man, this woman's beautiful. And then he goes home and you're like, oh, he's married. This is fucking weird. He's splitting his time between these two people. It's weird, man.
Were there two people? I thought there was just the one lady.
I was very confused just now.
I thought he was cheating on his wife. He was married, right?
He did say that weird line about having a wife or his wife, but
he's married.
But he's only with.
They mentioned it.
Well, no. He was talking, when he was talking to Okra about it, he said that they were divorced,
right,
and that they were like separated, and that he found a new girl that like.
I thought he was still seeing her.
No, he mentions his wife to her in that previous scene.
Yeah,
it did take me a minute to put together, because I thought maybe I didn't know what the story was, because they seem to have a history. But then
and he just kind of grabbed her and
that weird scene where he grabs her and gets in the car and yells at her. But
I didn't think that the woman in the house was the same woman that he was talking to in a restaurant. That's the same woman?
It is,
yeah. It's Tuesday Well.
Jesus Christ, man. Yeah.
One last thing before we move on. Willie Nelson?
Yeah.
Okra?
Okla.
Okla? What was it?
Okla? It's Okla, which I guess might be short for Oklahoma, but it's an odd name.
Yeah.
But his name is David, right?
David, yeah. Man, I love that scene. Like, it kind of plays like it plays very weird.
Yes, it is.
Like, and the way, you know, you had sent that meme around, or that you made of the meme of the clip, but like, it's so desperate and like loving that it's like watching it. It's just like, he's like his best friend, but he's like in love with him, you know, or you know, something. There's something else there.
Something's weird, yeah.
You know, like the way he's like looking at him and smiling at him, and I really loved it when he told him, you know, when he was like, "What do I do about this?" and he said, "Lie to no one."
Yeah.
I love that. Like, I thought that just like you could see the weight of the value that he placed on that relationship, that James Caan's character placed on that relationship. And, not long after that is like kind of when he just like lets it all out to her, and, is pretty brutally honest about what happened and what he does and what he did. And because of that, that recommendation or that insight that he had to offer. I don't know. I thought that scene was like maybe a little too short, even, or maybe more of that character in the show, in the movie.
I would have liked to see more of Oakley,
nice.
But I do like the way when he says,
too.
"Get me out of here." It's got this. You said like this desperation and this urgency to it. There was one other thing I wanted to mention too, though. Sure. It's like there is. You said vision board earlier. I think it's great that he has a vision board. That this tough guy has this postcard he's made where he has glued a collage of things that matter to him or things that he wants in his life. And it's like, here's your first date with this person that, the way I read that was he's been maybe flirting with this waitress. They've seen each other. Now he's free. He's got time to go grab her and throw her in a car and go, talk to her for, share his life with her in this way. But that like he's basically saying to her, I've chosen you to be my wife. I want to have kids with you. Let's go adopt. I just thought that was, it's a kind of a funny touch. It's another thing that makes this guy so strange to me, that he is this sensitive, raw nerve of a guy who like is super competent in the crime scenes, but then he's just an emotional mess in those other scenes. I thought that was an interesting choice, and again, that seems to be what the movie is really kind of about in a lot of ways. Did you notice that people kept saying "what's to it"? Yeah. There was definitely jargon in this movie, and I think that like Michael Mann is in love with the way criminals talk, and supposedly he like that cop that is in, like he's an Italian cop. I forget, Rizzi, I think is his name. He was a real criminal that gave James Caan a lot of information, and then James Caan that gave Michael Mann a lot of information behind the scenes, and then he cast him as a cop in the movie. So little touches like that. Michael Mann likes to use those. He likes to cast people that maybe are non-actors or that you don't expect to see in a movie like this. And it's full of these little odd character parts because of that. And it has that interesting energy. And I guess I had one question for you guys before we move on. What happened to James? I mean, I know Jim Belushi got killed, but what was that he got put into? What was that like tub of fluid?
I didn't really understand any of that. I know that he was like, they put him like in the iron sort of thing, and then they dumped his body. When was he killed? Like he was shot, right? Like
he was shot at the auto.
He was shot, but then he was in that. They put his carcass up, and then they dropped him into. I don't really know what that fluid was. Was it the fluid that they use for dry cleaning or something? Is it like the dry cleaning magic?
It's like you're just making a mess at your laundry if that's what you're doing, though. I don't know. I couldn't quite tell what we were supposed to make of that. And I was like, did I miss some context of what of what this is? Leo was the guy's name, right? The big heavy. So that was his operation, I guess. But yeah, what was that?
It was a very showy murder. Like, I felt like he was trying to demonstrate how crazy he could be. And he just could have just left his dead body when he shot him. It just doesn't feel like they did a lot to demonstrate, like, mean business.
Weren't they like a plate, a company, like a plating company?
Plating,
like that's the first guy he goes after. It's like,
so was that metal?
I'm saying like some kind of
it's like liquid metal.
Iron ore,
like a chemical
like
bath
metal,
or something
like,
that you use on metal, maybe.
Like some, or burying them in like some sort of like getting rid of the body in some sort of foundation of something. You know what I mean? Like a metal base. I don't know. Good question, but I don't know. This I'm glad we finally watched this. I really like the movie. I'd recommend it if anybody out there hasn't seen it or didn't watch along with us for this recommendation. But now I feel good that I've actually like now seen all of his movies. So it's like I'm a completionist of that sort. So thanks for watching with me, guys. And John, you're the next one, right?
Yes.
Have you thought about this?
I have thought about it, and there's a bit of a theme going. There were lots of options that we could have gone with. Okay. Because it could be anything. But I was thinking about this Godfather movie that we were talking about, that so many people seem to be talking about. I don't know. I really don't know anything about it. No, but Godfather, obviously one of the greatest films of all time, and it's odd to have a classic film like that has a sequel. Even I think when it came out, it was kind of odd sequels, you just don't think of that for movies of like Godfather stature. And then I started thinking like, okay, what's another like classic movie that had a sequel that maybe you wouldn't expect to have one? And then I thought of one that I've never watched, but that I've always heard enough about to be very curious about it. So for next week's required viewing, we're going to watch Psycho 2.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh man.
Written by Tom Holland, who was the guy who wrote and directed Child's Play a few years later. And, you know, this is one of those movies where when you look at the reviews for it, it's like split down the middle. Some people really seem to say this is an interesting way to follow up a movie like Psycho that's, you know, it's 20 years or so after the original. But it also it's a little bit in the slasher mold. You know, it came out in the early 80s when that was the tone of horror you were getting. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they brought Norman Bates into the slasher era. So Psycho 2, required viewing for next week.
Okay.
I'm a fan.
That's exciting.
Oh,
That's
okay.
exciting.
So you've seen it. All right, cool.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I
haven't seen it in a long time. So I'm
okay.
I remember liking it. Like I'm talking, a long time ago. Watched that, and I feel like I do remember liking it. So I'm that'll be fun to rewatch.
It's the year of my birth, so I'm really excited about it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I picked one the year of my birth. John picked one the year of your birth. Now, Ronald, when it comes back around, you got to make sure you hit John up with his.
Yeah,
okay,
73
Okay.
forward.
Probably find some good movies from 73.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Holy shit.
all right. Oh yeah. So that was Steve. What else have you guys watched that you want to mention? I've got one that I want to mention, but I want to wait a second. I want to give somebody else a chance because I'm excited to talk about this movie. But
Okay.
and I feel like it because maybe you both haven't seen it or even heard of it. So I want to hold off a second. But what
Okay.
have you guys seen? Anything that stands out? Ronald,
I saw a Michael Mann movie. I watched Heat the other day.
Have you not seen Heat?
I'd seen it, but a really long time ago. So I think this all kind of happened because I heard about the movie that Heat's based off of.
Mm-hmm.
I actually put it on my server. But Heat is a remake of another movie that was a TV movie. It actually had 3 forms, kind of, but I actually wanted to see Heat because it got restored a couple years ago, and I hadn't seen it in all its like utmost glory. So I actually saw a 4K UHD copy of it, and nobody was home. I cranked the fucking volume up and almost blew out my ears. I just couldn't. I think I thought I was tougher than I was when it came to the shootout scene. I had to crank it down. It was just too much shooting for too long. But that movie is a masterpiece, man. Like it really does take itself the right amount of seriously, and also kind of, you know, there are some parts that feel a little funny, like interactions between the criminals and stuff like that. But seeing what ultimately becomes the showdown, the showdown in the last act is one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen in my life. And you know, it doesn't feel the same when you watch something when you're a teenager or in your 20s versus watching something in your 30s and 40s and 50s. You know, context changes so much because you value different things, right? Because I remember watching Heat when I was younger and being like, man, I would do this. And now I'm watching it, so I'm like, I would never do that. But yeah, it's a fun ride. And if you haven't seen it, you know, these movies, you think that you've seen a movie before, and then you see them upgraded, you see them restored, you see the color palette the way it was supposed to be shown, the sound in the way that it was originally presented, and then it just changes the experience so much. So if you haven't seen Heat in a while, I'd suggest maybe renting it from the library or getting a 4K UHD copy, watching it at home. Golly, it makes a difference.
Yeah, I'd be curious to watch it like that. Heat's an all-timer for me too.
It's so good.
It's definitely I would agree. It's probably maybe his masterpiece. I don't know.
It is, man.
But
what else would be in contention if we were thinking about it? Like if it's, I mean, Heat.
Michael Mann wise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if there. I mean, you know, Manhunter. I rate Manhunter pretty highly. Last of the Mohicans is a solid movie, but it's not really the Michael Mann. You wouldn't put
honestly
it as the best Michael Mann movie.
The dark horse for me is Collateral.
Hell
yes. Fucking love Collateral.
Yeah, I do too. That might be.
Yeah.
Or the other one would be The Insider.
Holy shit! Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like that actually might be the one. But I mean, I don't know. Like those three.
Russell Crowe is so amazing in that.
Yeah, that movie is amazing. Yeah, those three really are just like perfect movies to me. Like I love those movies so much. Yeah, it's like he's got these movies you forget about. Like even you mentioning Last of the Mohicans. Yeah, like just it's crazy. Yeah, Manhunter would probably be there. I actually really like Miami Vice, the movie.
Yeah, me too.
I would say Heat, Collateral, and Insider probably are like it'd be between those for me, but I don't know which one I'd fall on. Heat is just like just that, like you were describing, Ronald, like the moments with Pacino and De Niro, and like Val Kilmer's great in it. I mean, just everybody in the movie is so good, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to watch too. Like it's so entertaining.
Yeah. You know, the stakes, Collateral and Heat just feel very out of control. Like there's a point where you're like, what is gonna, you know, when they rob the place in Heat, and it just feels like Val Kilmer kind of goes on his own to help, or what he perceives to be help. It just gets really crazy. Like I'm like, I've watched this movie before, and it still feels like, you know. So I don't know how he does it. He does it in such a raw way, like
good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's probably Heat. But I think those three probably would be what we could kind of break it down. But
Collateral though is one that I feel like it's not really underrated, because people seem to have kind of come around to just how good it is. But that was one where I think it just seemed that's like maybe not the only time Tom Cruise did something like that, but it's pretty close to the only time he did something that intense and that evil. So it's a really good turn from him. Well, I watched a movie that actually coincidentally did come out during the year of my birth, from 1973. I watched a childhood favorite that I used to watch with my mom all the time, and this movie so holds up. It is so fun. It is so funny, and it's really only marred by stories about what a terrible asshole Ryan O'Neal was as a man, and what a terrible childhood Tatum O'Neal had. But the movie Paper Moon, directed by Peter Bogdanovich and written by Alvin Sargent, is fantastic. Madeline Kahn, one of the funniest characters she ever played, and that's saying something. There's a young girl named Imogene in it, played by PJ Johnson, who may be an actress who only did this one part. But the chemistry between Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal as father and daughter, if you just ignore the stories about how much they yelled at her to get her to do her scenes properly, and like what a terrible time she had, it feels so like hip and current in terms of the kind of humor that's in it. And it reminds me of like Coen Brothers and Wes Anderson, except it doesn't have that slightly slick aloofness sometimes that people can have. Like it feels just a little bit scuffed up and dirty. It's set during kind of Depression era, and it's just a con artist Bible salesman who goes around basically the South during that era with his it's pretty clearly his daughter, but he's in denial about it, and he's supposed to be taking her. He basically shows up to the funeral of a woman that he had an affair with, and when he's there, they say, "This girl is your daughter. She's got family in this place. Don't you owe this much to her?" And so they get on the road together, and they very quickly become partners in crime. And it's just, I mean, it just crackles. It's funny, sweet. And it is interesting. I mentioned Imogene. You have a young black girl in this movie who is a funny character who doesn't, I don't know, you're ready to cringe when a person of color shows up in a movie from the 70s that is set during the Depression. And she's actually a really funny, likable character that seems fully rounded. No, it's just, I think Paper Moon, it's one of those movies that people talk about like it's a near perfect film. And, I really do think it's one of those. It's just, and it's fast and funny. Love it.
I'm a fan. I love that movie. I've seen it a couple times. I haven't seen it recently, but you're making me want to rewatch it. I remember the feeling of watching their chemistry, and
Yeah.
The schemes.
Mm-hmm.
This is
That's
a cool
so fun.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool ass movie. Man. Cool. Steve,
I
I want
watched
to hear this.
I watched one movie, Steve, that showed me that if you do this, you can
Me too.
stop just about any dinosaur that's coming your way.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop.
That's that movie. Yeah.
Not only does the iconic character Owen Brady, played by Chris Pratt. Oh my God!
If he doesn't get the fuck out of here, man.
But not only does he know how to make dinosaurs stop with the palm of his hand, he also knows how to make a group of dangerous dinosaurs run away by saying, "Go on, get!" He actually does that at one part, and the dinosaurs go running away. I mean, I sat down to watch this movie at home feeling like this is strange that there's a Jurassic Park movie that I did not go see in the theater. And then as it was trucking along, I was like, oh man, I am sort of glad that I did not, because there were parts where it got me going. There were little moments of magic and got the sparks going and got that Jurassic Park feeling. But in general, I just feel like with all that they had, the cast, the returning cast, Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, all of them together, you do get some sparks from that. But then when they meet up with the new characters, it's like, oh yeah, I really don't give a shit about any of these new characters they've created for these movies. And I think it's hilarious that Campbell Scott's villain, who I think you mentioned, Ronald, is basically Tim Cook, that his main character trait is that he's always snacking on something. And I also thought, did he just take this role? He's like taking a job that Mark Rylance was supposed to get. This feels like a Mark Rylance performance. Maybe it's basically what he played in
in Don't Look Up.
Yeah. But so yeah, Tim Cook has taken some shots basically. Whenever someone wants to depict a certain kind of megalomaniacal corporate evil, he's the prototype right now. The kind of whatever you want to call that, tech philosopher style of CEO. But yeah, this movie just didn't. I don't know. When it got to the end, I was like, okay, all right, I'm done with Jurassic Park now.
But I think that's what. I think that works somehow. Like, I think that people still want to see a serviceable bug movie.
It's a bug movie. It's a locust
bug movie. I'm like, what the fuck is this, man?
Yeah.
I thought it just took up too much of the story. This script is abysmal, by the way. Like, it is 3 stories put into one, and it just doesn't feel good. None of them feel good enough except for the original cast for this to be like a thing. And they kind of tried to make an A, B, and C story and jam them together, and then cloning and what? Yeah. It just gets muddy.
It's a hat on a hat on a hat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a Russian doll hat on a hat on a hat on a hat. It gets real weird, and but I want to see another one. If it comes out in a couple of years, I'll probably see it. But
I want them to go crazy. I feel like they
aren't going crazy enough.
At this point, they're going too crazy in the wrong ways, with these stories, and not in the right ways. But I do think that like where this movie works, it's either the original cast, and it's some of the action sequences. They have a scale and emotion to them that does feel kind of good in some moments. And I think, as much as I was razzing Chris Pratt a minute ago, I do think there's a side of him that can handle some of those. For instance, when he's on a motorbike, he looks kind of cool. When he's doing hand-to-hand combat, he doesn't. So it's almost like with Chris Pratt, you get like half of an action star, but you don't really get the whole package somehow. And I don't know why that is. Like, I love Star-Lord, and I loved him on Parks and Rec, but I just don't know if there's been another use of him that has been as effective as those. So,
but what about the future movie? The Tomorrow War was pretty good, man.
See, I didn't see that one. I need to give that a shot.
Oh, it's a fun, weird movie. It's a fun, weird movie. But also serviceable. I guess if I'm being honest, it's just as serviceable as Jurassic Park. But it's fun. It's like, yeah, man, I think I know what you're saying, man. There's something about Chris Pratt that just isn't. I think they moved him up to the pros too fast. You know what I mean? You hear those stories. They called him up too soon.
Yeah.
You hear about those like high school prodigies. And you're like, man, he's gonna go to the Orioles, and you never hear about him ever again.
Yeah.
I just feel like Chris Pratt didn't give himself enough. Like, he should have had the presence of mind. And I know it has to do with like, if somebody offers you something, you hear these stories about really big stars that are like, I don't think I have the thing that you need for this movie. I don't know if he has that discerning taste about things yet.
Right.
And I know that sounds weird, and I'm not trying to insult him. I just think that like
he's all right.
He needs to get back to what makes him special, And I feel like he just is like, I'm big and I'm strong. I could be in this movie. And I don't know. He's losing me.
I liked him in Thor: Love and Thunder, but again, that's Star-Lord as written by Taika Waititi with advice from James Gunn. So that's about in the wheelhouse of Chris Pratt as you can get. No, I think you're right, Ronald. I would want to add that note that on the script level, this movie keeps trying to create these iconic character moments with these cool lines that just fall flat. There's so many moments where there's just like there needed to be some wit in this movie. Like Jeff Goldblum has this really weird line where he says, "I once had a dog that humped my leg so much I got a callus on my shin bone." I don't think there's been a weirder line in a movie ever. Like, could that even happen? I don't know. Write in if anyone knows of that ever happening. What part of the dog is that rough? I don't know. I'm really confused.
But on a good note, Laura Dern looks outrageously great. It's like crazy how good she looks. Like, I don't know what kind of water she's drinking, but she's looked the same for like 30 straight years, and it is nuts to me.
She was always too young for Sam Neill, but I feel like in this movie they really have to work hard to make it seem like he's not close to 20 years older than her or something like that. But he's good. Those three know what they're doing. They're likable. But
so I need to hear about this movie, Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
I'm not trying to like make it like an oversell thing. I just have stumbled upon a movie that might be the best animated movie of the year so far. That is slowly more people are talking about, and I want more people to see it.
I think I know what it is.
It comes by way of Netflix.
Yes.
And if you have Netflix, you can watch it right now. It's called The Sea Beast. And if you like How to Train Your Dragon, I feel like you're gonna love this movie. This is from I guess at least partially written, co-written, co-directed, maybe directed. I forget which of which, but Chris Williams, who's done some Disney movies. He did like Moana. He did Big Hero 6, Bolt. Some really popular, very beloved Disney films. Like he announced that he was doing this movie with Netflix 3 or 4 years ago. Finally comes out. It's got Jared Harris voicing Carl Urban, Dan Stevens. A couple other names I'm blanking on.
Those are like 3 of my favorites.
Right. That's all you need, right? But I mean, it's just this great animated movie about this young girl who stows away on this ship of these monster hunters, these sea monsters. This time they kind of are the heroes of the lands that like hunt these sea monsters. And she kind of stows away and like, these are her heroes. And, they're hunting these monsters. And there's that moment of like, are they monsters? Or are we just doing something wrong? Which is like this understanding of what these things are versus what we kind of, or they point them out to be. And there's the monster, the character monster. I think it's like red. I think she calls it Red. It's on the poster. It's on the key art on Netflix. You would see it. Just a gorgeous creature in an animated film. Where the story goes in terms of Carl Urban's character and the young girl, like kind of the change of heart, the learning, just this journey that they go on together. It's really funny. It's got some beautiful animation. The story is great. And it just really kind of hits in the feels a bit, just kind of like How to Train Your Dragon did. It feels very similar to that in some ways, but original in others, like with this mythology and this idea of like I guess at that time, like the hero worship of these pirates or these seafarers that like hunted these monsters. And some may be monsters and some may be just misunderstood. I don't know, but you need to watch it because I loved it. Yeah, right. I loved it. I've watched it a couple times now because my kids love it. But there's been some really good animated films this year. Like I really love Turning Red. I thought Lightyear was good. But this might be the best animated film so far this year, and it's on Netflix. It's in the top 10. I mean, the reviews on it, I think it's got like a 97 or 98 on Rotten Tomato verified. Audience score, I think, is over 93 or 4 or something like that. Everybody that I've talked to who's seen it has loved it, and I've recommended it to a few friends, and they have nothing but positive things. So I'd love it, you guys check it out. Let me know what you think.
Definitely.
But if you're looking for a
definitely
fun family animated film, funny with some heart, and so just some beautiful action sequences too, the Sea Beast will deliver. I promise you, it's great.
Wow.
And yeah, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. You got to check it out. It's great.
You know, Netflix animation has been kind of like strong. They've done some really interesting looking movies and some good stuff. And didn't they sort of? Wasn't there a lot of? At least I feel like I remember hearing some animated projects that were shut down in that recent wave of Netflix kind of tightening up the belt. That made the news. And I know Bone, the graphic novel Bone, that's a beloved fantasy story, that was supposed to be like a series of films on Netflix that got completely finally, it was one of those development hell kind of things that finally had what sounded like a really good home, which is Netflix animation. And I know that has been shut down. So I wonder if this is one of the ones that was so far along that it kind of still retains that just that whatever they have been doing with their animated projects, where they've all had sort of a unique look to them and gotten good creators. But yeah, this is one that's been kind of creeping up on the periphery. I've heard nothing but good things about it too, so I'm glad to hear that it passes.
Yeah, I think you guys would both like it. I really don't think it's hard to find. I don't know. It's just a pleasing all around. Like I just happened to I feel like I'd heard a bit about it just in the weeks leading up to it. Maybe I'd seen Carl Urban doing some press for it, but in terms of timing with what he's doing for The Boys, and then this kind of popped up,
right.
And it was just like, oh, that's the movie that I heard about, and Sydney was like, let's watch it, and then it's great. It's just great. I'm excited to recommend it, and hopefully people can check it out and enjoy it as much as I did, because it's quite enjoyable.
Cool. I just added it to my list.
Yeah, man. Let me know when you watch it if you like it or not.
Absolutely.
Another. Maybe not to the degree, but just for nostalgia's sake, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, I thought was a lot of fun as well.
Yes.
If you're a Beavis and Butthead fan, Do America has a probably special place in your heart. And this is just right in line with it. It's friggin', if you like Beavis and Butthead, it's great. I mean, it's kind of crazy to me that the movie even exists and that it's out and available and it's streaming.
Yeah.
But I think was it Paramount Plus?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of that whole Viacom thing. But
Home of the Offer.
Right. Home of the Offer. They've got that and Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. But yeah, if you like Beavis and Butthead, just definitely recommend that too. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Mike Judge is smart and funny, and
so true.
Kind of doesn't mess around. And speaking of The Offer, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe is almost as funny as Giovanni Ribisi's voice as Joe Colombo in The Offer. I know you only made it through an epised of that, Steve.
Yeah, I haven't
seen any of that, Ronald? Any of his performance?
No.
I definitely saw that performance.
He basically talks like this the whole time. He's doing this like that,
Anyway, it's pretty hilarious. But that's got it, Steve. It gets better, or at least you get more sucked into the kind of heightened drama of it. But it's funny. It's whenever they make a movie about making movies, it's the most important thing in the world to do. So this is a 10-hour series about how important it was that people make The Godfather.
I saw a movie. I saw the Watcher.
Oh, how was that?
I really enjoyed it.
It's weird you say that. That actually might watch that tonight because Erin is away on work, and I'm like, I got to watch all the horror movies I can while she's gone.
So Micah Monroe has gone from The Guest, It Follows, and then this movie. There's something about this woman. She likes to be in movies where that dynamic is really strange at first, and then it just it gets complicated. She moves to an unfamiliar place, and she believes that she's being watched, and it is a real slow.
There, yeah.
It really does, man. It's a slow burn, but if you're patient, it really starts to get weird. It starts to get how much, it's about. It's a cool commentary on how unsafe women feel in general in the world. So everything is like a horror film for a woman by herself outside in the world, not, just doing arbitrary things can become the scariest thing in the world if you feel like somebody's after you. It's just it's a terrifying notion. And, you know, it follows kind of felt like that. And this feels like a little sharper commentary on that. And it's worth checking out. It's up there, man. It's up there for me this year.
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and you said you wanted to see it, Ronald. I'm glad you finally caught it. But like, I would totally agree. And I watched it the same kind of batch of movies that I was watching Men. And so it's like, and that movie too plays around with that idea, as I'm just repeating myself now, but with that idea of like, what does it mean to be a woman and be alone? Are you safer if you're alone, or are you safer if there's a man around? You know, and that image in a movie of a woman alone in a dark house or in the woods or in a new city, we're used to that being like an image of danger. And I think The Watcher has its own way of kind of turning that idea around of like, you begin to wonder, like, is she as dangerous as the person? It's that whole, you know, in the movie it comes up and it's in the trailer of like, well, maybe the person that every time you look over there and you see someone watching you, maybe they're looking at that person that's constantly watching them, you know? And it kind of plays with that idea. There's a little bit of that like unreliable narrator almost of like your main character maybe instigating something, or she may be responding to something, and that tension is really interesting. And I thought too, just this way it was shot and the pacing and the movement of the camera, it really got some creepy moments out of that premise, I thought.
Yeah, for sure, man. Steve, I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I've been trying to watch that one for a while, and I just haven't had a chance. But maybe this is my shot.
Yeah, do it.
Do it. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you guys like that. I think that's it. I don't have anything else to really get into. I'm still trying to finish part 2 of Ozark, of the final season. I'm like still stepping through it. That's my other priority to get that done this week. But yeah, I haven't really watched a whole lot else this week. All right, cool. Well, that'll wrap it up. So next, required viewing?
Required viewing, yes. It's not recommended.
Next week.
That's weak ass shit.
Yeah, that's optional.
Required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Psycho 2 for next week if you want to play along, watch along, hang out, talk about it. We'll do that next week, and that'll be interesting, I'm sure.
And hopefully we can talk about Nope as well.
Yeah, that would be good. That's a nice little pairing, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try so hard to see that movie.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how well it does box office this weekend.
Me too.
It could be huge.
Tracking is all over the place.
Much hype.
Yeah. The tracking is all over the place at the box office the past few months, and it's like they have it tracking at around 50, and I think Get Out and Us were like more like 70, 80 range.
Oh.
Or maybe Get Out was in the that wasn't that high, but like, you know, it had the legs were kind of ran longer and grew, where then Us opened bigger, but now this is like tracking a little lower. But I'm just curious if the awareness is there. And
me too.
I can't wait to see it. Looks great. Yeah, so we'll chat next week. Hopefully, maybe we'll try to see that. Maybe if we all see it, that'd be awesome. But we'll see where that ends up. Schmovie.com is the website. You can go there to subscribe to the podcast, the audio portions on whatever podcast app you prefer to use for listening to one-offs or subscribing and getting it, in your feed every week. Please do that if it offers that for you. You can leave a review or a rating. That would be nice as well. If you want to check out YouTube, you can link to all our social media right from the movieschmovie.com to get the video portion of this podcast, where you can see me with a child's pair of pink headphones this evening with one ear on, because I don't have a pair of headsets right now. That's a little bonus. You can go to YouTube for that, subscribe so you get notifications when new videos come out. Ronald does a great job putting those together for us, so you should take advantage of that and watch them.
Please do.
Yeah, I think that's it, guys. We'll see you next week. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.
What's to it, my man?